The musty scent of old photographs and mothballs filled my lungs as I climbed the narrow stairs to Grandma's attic. Each step creaked under my feet, a familiar sound from countless childhood adventures in this space. But today felt different. Today, I wasn't here to play pretend or hide from my sister Brinley. I was here because Grandma was gone. "Callie, have you found the photo albums yet?" My mother's voice drifted up from below. "Still looking, Mom," I called back, running my fingers along a dusty trunk. My name is Callie, and I've always been the family's reliable workhorse, the one who shows up early, stays late, and never complains. A shaft of afternoon sunlight cut through the small window, illuminating dancing dust motes and catching on something metallic in the corner. Curious, I made my way over and found an old chest I'd never noticed before, partially hidden behind some boxes. "Richard's already talking about selling the house," Brinley's voice carried up the stairs, followed by footsteps. "He says there's no point keeping it." My jaw clenched at the mention of my brother-in-law. Of course he was already making plans. He'd barely waited until after the funeral to start claiming his piece of the pie. "Found something interesting," I called down, trying to keep my voice neutral as I examined the chest's ornate lock. "Whatever it is, make it quick." Richard's smooth voice joined the conversation. "The lawyer's coming at 4 to discuss the will." I bit back a retort and instead focused on the chest. The lock was old but not rusted, and after some gentle manipulation, it clicked open. Inside, I found stacks of letters bound with faded ribbon, and beneath them, a leather-bound diary. "Callie," Richard's impatient voice again, "we don't have time for treasure hunting." I grabbed the diary and a bundle of letters, stuffing them into my bag, just as footsteps approached the attic stairs. Something about the way these were hidden made me want to examine them privately. Richard appeared at the top of the stairs, his perfectly pressed suit incongruous in the dusty attic. "There you are. Guy's here early. Time for the reading." Downstairs, everyone gathered in Grandma's living room. Guy, the family lawyer, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "Before we begin, I should mention that Mrs. Wallace was very specific about the distribution of her estate." I sat in the corner, clutching my bag with the hidden letters, watching Richard's confident smile as he perched on the armrest of Brinley's chair. "The house and majority of the estate," Guy continued, "will go to Richard Whitney." The room went silent. My mother's face paled, and Brinley squeezed Richard's hand. But all I could focus on was the weight of the letters in my bag and the nagging feeling that there was more to this story than anyone knew. "I can't believe you're not even mentioned in the will," Camilla said, sliding a coffee across her kitchen table to me. It was nearly midnight, but sleep felt impossible after the day's events. Neither can I. I pulled out the letters and diary I'd taken from the attic. "But I found these right before the reading." "And you just took them?" Camilla raised an eyebrow. Something felt off. Richard was hovering, rushing me out of there. I untied the first bundle of letters with trembling fingers. Besides, it's not like he'll notice. He's too busy planning how to renovate my grandmother's house. The first letter was dated 30 years ago, written in my mother's familiar handwriting. As I read, my coffee grew cold, forgotten. "Oh my God," I whispered, scanning the pages again. "Camilla, these letters, they're between my mother and Grandma. They're arguing about Richard's father." "Richard's father? What about him?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Brinley. "Where are you? Richard's furious about some missing papers from the attic. How could he possibly know already?" Camilla peered at my phone. Another buzz. "Mom's having a meltdown. You need to come home now." I gathered the letters quickly, but one slipped from the bundle. Camilla picked it up, her eyes widening as she read. "Callie, according to this, Richard's father tried to blackmail your grandmother years ago. Something about business fraud." "What?" I snatched the letter, scanning it frantically. "That's why she gave Richard everything. Because his father had something on her." My phone rang. Richard's number. I declined the call. "You need to talk to your mother," Camilla said firmly, "before Richard does." I drove through the dark streets to my mother's house, the letters burning a hole in my bag. The lights were still on, and I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. Richard opened the door before I could knock. "Where are they?" His usual smooth charm was gone, replaced by barely contained rage. "Where are what?" I pushed past him into the living room, where my mother sat crying on the couch. "The letters, Callie," she whispered. "Please tell me you didn't read them." I did. My voice was stronger than I felt. And I think it's time we talked about why Richard's father had so much influence over Grandma's decisions. Richard stepped between us. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually," I pulled out the most damning letter. "I think it concerns all of us, especially since your father's blackmail is the only reason you're standing first in line for Grandma's will." The colour drained from my mother's face. "Callie, you don't understand." "Then help me understand, Mom. Because right now, all I see is 30 years of lies. Your grandmother made mistakes." My mother's voice quivered as she paced the living room. "Terrible business decisions that would have ruined everything." "And Richard's father knew about them," I pressed, gripping the letters tightly. "He was her business partner." Mom collapsed back onto the couch. "He threatened to expose her unless she agreed to certain arrangements." Richard stepped forward, his jaw tight. "My father protected this family." "By extorting Grandma," I shot back. A knock at the door made us all jump. Seamus, my childhood friend who lived next door, stood on the porch. "Everything okay?" I heard shouting. Before anyone could stop me, I grabbed Seamus's arm and pulled him inside. I needed a witness, someone outside the family drama. "Tell them what you found in Grandma's study, Callie," Richard said suddenly, his voice dangerously calm. "Tell them about the other documents you took." "What other documents?" I turned to face him. "Don't play innocent. The partnership agreement. The one proving my father saved this family from bankruptcy." My mother's head snapped up. "What partnership agreement?" "There wasn't anything else," I said. "Just these letters." Brinley appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Richard, what's going on? What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing, honey." Richard moved to comfort her, but she stepped away. "I found something too," she said quietly, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. "In your office." Richard lunged for the paper, but Seamus stepped between them. "Easy there, buddy." Brinley's hand shook as she unfolded the document. "It's a letter from Dad to Grandma dated last year. He was still blackmailing her, Richard. Even after he died, you continued it." The room went silent. Richard's confident facade cracked slightly. "You knew?" I asked my sister. "You knew and you still let him." "I just found out tonight," Brinley's voice broke. "I went looking after you took those letters. I had to know." "This is ridiculous," Richard snarled. "That letter proves nothing." "Actually," Seamus spoke up, "as a legal document it proves quite a bit, especially the part about continuing coercion after your father's death." I hadn't known Seamus was a lawyer. From Richard's suddenly pale face, he hadn't either. "We should call Guy," my mother said suddenly. "The will, if it was signed under duress." "Don't you dare," Richard's voice was low, threatening. "Think about what you're risking, all of you." But looking at my sister's tears, my mother's guilt, and Seamus's steady presence beside me, I knew we were past the point of threats. "I'm calling Guy," I said, pulling out my phone. "This ends now." Rain drummed against Guy's office windows as he reviewed the letters spread across his desk. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but none of us moved to leave. "This is complicated," Guy finally said, removing his glasses. "The original blackmail, the continued coercion. Mrs. Wallace clearly signed the will under duress." "So we can contest it?" I leaned forward. "It's not that simple." Guy glanced nervously at Richard, who stood by the window. "There's something else you need to know." "Don't," Richard warned. Guy ignored him. "I knew about the blackmail. Your grandmother told me everything last month." "You knew?" My mother's voice cracked. "And you still processed that will?" "Because I had no choice." Guy pulled another document from his desk drawer. Richard threatened to expose my involvement in covering up the original business fraud. Seamus, who'd been quietly observing, stepped forward. That's a confession of criminal conspiracy. Which is exactly why nobody in this room is going to breathe a word of this, Richard smiled coldly. We're all implicated now. Not me, I stood up. And not Brinley. No? Richard turned to my sister. Tell them about the offshore account, honey. The one your name is on. Brinley's face crumpled. I thought it was for our future. It was laundered money, Seamus said quietly. Wasn't it, Richard? The rain grew heavier, matching the weight of revelations in the room. I have one question, I faced Guy. Did Grandma leave any other documents with you? Anything Richard doesn't know about? Guy's hesitation was answer enough. Don't you dare. Richard stepped toward the desk, but Seamus blocked his path. There's a safety deposit box, Guy admitted. Your grandmother left specific instructions. It's only to be opened if the will was ever contested. Give me the key, Richard demanded. It's not here. Guy straightened his spine. And it's not in my name. It's in Callie's. The room went still. I felt everyone's eyes on me as Guy continued. Your grandmother knew this might happen. She left you the key at the bank, Callie. She trusted you to make this right. Richard's laugh was hollow. You really think you can undo 30 years of careful planning? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. Maybe, I met his gaze. But I'm the only one Grandma trusted with the truth. And tomorrow morning, I'm opening that safety deposit box. I'll stop you, Richard threatened. No, Brinley stepped away from him. You won't. I'm done protecting you. As thunder cracked outside, I saw real fear flash across Richard's face for the first time. Whatever was in that safety deposit box, he was terrified of it coming to light. The bank opened at 9 a.m. I arrived at 8:30, with Seamus and Camilla flanking me like bodyguards. We weren't taking any chances after the threatening letters that had appeared under my door that morning. He's here. Camilla nodded toward the parking lot, where Richard's black Mercedes pulled in. He wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize stepped out of the passenger side. Private investigator, Seamus muttered. I've seen him at the courthouse. The bank manager, Sarah, greeted us at exactly 9 a.m. Miss Wallace, this way, please. I'm coming too. Richard strode forward. As the primary beneficiary of the estate, actually, Sarah consulted her tablet, the safety deposit box is registered solely to Callie Wallace. No other parties are permitted access. In the vault room, my hands trembled as I inserted the key. Inside the box was a single USB drive and an envelope with "Read me first" written in Grandma's handwriting. Dear Callie, I read aloud to Seamus and Camilla. If you're reading this, then Richard's true nature has finally come to light. The USB contains proof of everything. The original fraud, the blackmail, and most importantly, the real will I wrote before Richard forced my hand. But be careful, sweetheart. What you'll find will hurt more than just Richard. My phone buzzed. A text from Brinley. Mum's gone. Left a note saying she's sorry. Richard's furious. We need to see what's on this drive, Camilla said. Back at her apartment, we huddled around her laptop. The files loaded, revealing folders of documents, emails, and recorded conversations spanning decades. Oh, God, I whispered, opening a video file. It was Grandma, recording herself in secret. Callie, her voice cracked through the speakers. I'm so sorry. The truth is, Richard's father didn't just blackmail me. Your mother. She was involved in the original fraud. She helped cover it up, thinking she was protecting the family. Richard knew. He's been using it against all of us. The video continued, revealing layers of deception I never imagined. My mother's involvement, the real will, leaving the estate split equally between Brinley and me. Richard's systematic destruction of evidence. We have enough to destroy him, Seamus said quietly. My phone rang. Richard. I know you've seen it by now, he said when I answered. Here's the deal. Walk away, and your mother's involvement stays buried. Push this, and I'll make sure she faces charges. No more deals, I replied, my voice steady. No more threats. Don't be stupid, Callie. Think about your family. I am. That's why I just sent everything to the district attorney. The line went silent for a moment. Then Richard laughed, a desperate, unhinged sound. You have no idea what you've just done. Actually, I said, I finally know exactly what I'm doing. The district attorney's office buzzed with activity as I sat across from DA Janet Morris, watching her review the evidence. This is extensive, she said, looking up from her computer. Your grandmother was thorough. Will it be enough? Seamus asked from the chair beside me. He hadn't left my side since we'd discovered the USB's contents. More than enough for multiple indictments. Richard, his associates, the complicit parties. She paused. Including your mother. My stomach twisted. Is there any way to... The door burst open. Richard strode in, followed by an expensive-looking lawyer. This meeting is over, his lawyer announced. My client has information about ongoing federal investigations that supersede this matter. Actually, Janet smiled, we've been building a case against your client for months. Ms. Wallace's evidence was the final piece we needed. Richard's composure cracked. You're bluffing. The FBI is executing search warrants as we speak, Janet continued. Your office, your home, your offshore accounts. You can't touch those accounts, Richard snarled. Already frozen, Janet replied, along with the evidence of money laundering through your wife's name. My phone vibrated. A text from Brinley. Police are here. They're taking everything. What should I do? Tell the truth, I typed back. All of it. This isn't over. Richard's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You have no idea what I'm capable of. But I do, a new voice said from the doorway. My mother stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. And I'm ready to testify. Anne, Richard's lawyer warned, think carefully about... I'm done thinking carefully. She stepped into the room. I'm done being afraid. Mom, I started, but she held up her hand. I helped cover up the original fraud, she told Janet. I'll give you everything, dates, documents, names, in exchange for helping with the investigation. You'll still face charges, Janet warned. I know. Mom met my eyes. But it's time to make things right. Richard lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my arm. You think you've won? I still have copies of everything. One phone call and... Seamus moved faster than I'd ever seen, pinning Richard's arm behind his back. That's assault on a witness. Want to add it to your charges? Security officers rushed in, handcuffing Richard as he shouted threats and promises of revenge. It's really over? I asked Janet as they led him away. The investigation's just beginning, she replied. But yes, his power over your family is finished. Mum touched my shoulder tentatively. Callie, I know I don't deserve... I turned and hugged her, feeling her tears soak my shoulder. We'll figure it out, I whispered. Together. Seamus squeezed my hand, and for the first time since finding those letters in the attic, I felt like I could breathe again. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as we arrived for Richard's arraignment. 3 months of investigations had led to this moment. Ms. Wallace, how does it feel to expose your own family's corruption? A reporter shouted. Seamus guided me through the crowd, his hand steady on my back. Inside, Brinley waited with her new lawyer. They're offering Richard a deal, she said, her wedding ring noticeably absent. He's refusing to take it. Of course he is, I sighed. He still thinks he can win. There's something else. Brinley pulled me aside. They found another safety deposit box, one grandma set up in Richard's name. Before I could respond, the courtroom doors opened. Richard walked in, flanked by guards, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. He smirked when he saw me. Last chance, Callie, he called out. I can still burn it all down. Proceed with caution, Mr. Whitney, the judge warned as she entered. The proceedings began, but I barely heard them. My attention was fixed on a familiar figure slipping into the back row. Guy, carrying a thick manila envelope. Your Honor, Richard's lawyer stood. Before we continue, my client has evidence of broader criminal enterprises that may interest the federal authorities. Actually, Guy stood up, I have something the court needs to see first. Richard's face went pale. Objection. He's not part of these proceedings. I'm entering this as evidence. Guy approached the bench with his envelope. It's the contents of the second safety deposit box, the one Richard's father set up. The judge reviewed the documents, her expression darkening. "Mr. Whitney, are you aware of these records?" Richard's lawyer grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. "Your Honor, we request a recess." "It's over, Richard," Guy said. "Your father documented everything. Every threat, every bribe, every illegal transaction. He kept it as insurance against you ever betraying him." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Brinley gripped my hand as Richard jumped to his feet. "You're lying. My father would never—" "He knew what you were," Guy continued. "He knew you'd try to take everything for yourself after he died. So he made sure there was a fail-safe." "Order!" The judge banged her gavel. "In light of this new evidence, we'll take a brief recess. Mr. Whitney, I strongly advise you to reconsider the prosecution's offer." As Richard was led away, his mask of confidence finally shattered completely. He looked at me one last time, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Defeat. "I never knew," Brinley whispered. "All those years, I never knew who he really was." "None of us did," I hugged my sister. "But now we can start over. The right way." Outside the courtroom, Seamus waited with a gentle smile. "Ready to go home?" I looked at my sister, then back at him. "Yes, I think I finally am." The autumn breeze rustled through Grandma's garden as I unlocked the front door of her house, my house now shared with Brinley, just as the real will had specified. "The movers are coming tomorrow," Brinley said, setting down a box of old photos. "Fresh start. Hard to believe Richard took the plea deal." I sorted through mail on the counter. 20 years. He had no choice after his father's evidence came out. Brinley paused. "Have you visited Mom?" "Yesterday. She's doing okay. The community service program keeps her busy, and her testimony helped a lot with her sentencing." The doorbell rang. Seamus stood on the porch with Camila, carrying paint samples and takeout. "Ready to make this place your own?" Camila grinned. We spread the food across the kitchen counter, the same counter where Richard had once lorded over family gatherings. Now his arrogance was replaced by the warm scent of Chinese food and friendly laughter. "Found something you should see." Seamus pulled an envelope from his jacket. It was behind Grandma's dresser when we moved it. Inside was a handwritten letter, dated just weeks before she died. "My dearest girls, if you're reading this, the truth has finally come out. Callie, you were always stronger than you knew. I counted on that strength. Brinley, your heart was always in the right place, even when your trust was misplaced. I'm sorry I couldn't fight Richard myself, but I knew that together, you would find the truth. The house is yours now, to share and to heal in. Make new memories here. Better ones. All my love, Grandma." "She knew," Brinley whispered. "She knew we'd fix it together." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Guy, carrying a bottle of champagne. "The last of the paperwork is filed," he announced. "The estate is officially transferred, and all of Richard's appeals have been denied." We gathered in the living room, raising glasses, as the setting sun painted the walls golden. "To Grandma," I said. "To the truth," Brinley added. "To new beginnings," Seamus smiled, his hand finding mine, looking around the room, at my sister's healing smile, at Camilla's proud grin, at Guy's relieved expression, at Seamus's loving eyes. I finally understood what Grandma had known all along. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built on the ashes of what we thought we couldn't survive. "You know what?" I stood up. "Let's plant something in Grandma's garden, something that'll bloom every spring." "Something strong," Brinley agreed. As we headed outside into the cool evening air, I felt Grandma's presence in every corner of the house, not as a shadow of secrets anymore, but as a light guiding us forward. We were going to be okay. All of us. Together.